And I said to him, I got this great idea. I want to call him Spider-Man, and he's a teenager. Stan, that is the worst idea I have ever heard. So he wouldn't let me do it. I really wanted to quit and try something else.
So what stopped Stan Lee from quitting that day? Stan's cousin wanted to set him up with a model named Betty. But on the way to his blind date, fate had another plan.
Somebody opened the door, a model, and I took one look at her, and it was the face I had always been drawing. I couldn't believe it. I never did meet Betty. I mean, this was not Betty. Her name was Joan.
Who's the best-looking man you've ever seen?
Stan Lee.
I just want to warm up with that.
Of course, Stan Lee. The nicest man I've ever known.
It took Stan years to see the value in writing comics.
When I was young, I was almost embarrassed because I felt other men and women were building bridges and doing scientific research and things that mattered. And I'm writing these dopey little stories.
So how did Stan go from being ashamed to finding pride in his work? One night, Stan noticed a fly crawling on the wall.
And I said, gee, wouldn't it be cool if I had a hero who could stick to walls like an insect? What'll I call him? Insect Man? That didn't sound dramatic. Mosquito Man? Yeah, I went down the list. When I got to Spider-Man, Spider-Man, oh, that sounded dramatic.
His publisher hated the idea.
He said, first of all, people hate spiders. You can't call a hero Spider-Man. Secondly, he said, he can't be a teenager. Teenagers are only sidekicks. And finally, he can't have personal problems. Don't you know what a superhero is?
Stan went home so discouraged he wanted to quit, but Joan wouldn't let him give up.
She gave me the world's greatest advice. She said, why don't you do one book the way you want to do it? The worst that'll happen, he'll fire you, but you want to quit anyway. At least you'll have gotten it out of your system.
Spider-Man was introduced to the world and became an instant hit.
Because he was shy, he wasn't that successful with girls, he had to worry about his family. I think most teenagers reading it thought to themselves, hey, that could be me. You could be any kid.
Yeah.
You could be black, you could be Asian, you could be Indian, you could be anything, and imagine you were in that costume.
To this day, Spider-Man continues to be one of the most beloved superheroes, and Joan was there to support her husband every step of the way.
My wife and I are really so close, and yet I'm not sure if she's ever read a story I wrote. She's totally not into comics at all. She's the perfect wife for me.
Without Joan's advice, Stan would have never introduced Spider-Man to the world. In 2017, Joan passed away after 70 loving years with her husband.
If not for Joni, I'd be outside saying, hey, you got a nickel?
Heartbroken and alone, Stan's health began to decline.
I didn't realize the whole world was worried about whether I was in the hospital or not. It was fine. It made me feel good, refreshed. Now I'm home and looking for new trouble to get into. You know, the usual.
A year later, Stan passed away due to congestive heart failure.
He was such a good friend to me, and I was such a big fan of his and his work. I'll never be forgotten. And every day when we make these films is a moment where everyone thinks about Stan.
True Stan Lee format, just so full of life and just so kind and gregarious, and just made me feel right at home. And
it's just such a great character and story you created, and I'm just eternally grateful.
Right. And at any time, just say to yourself, how would Stan say this? And you'll be up. And I'm no further than your phone. You run into problems, I'm always there.
I remember Stan as a true gentleman who had this glint in his eye. He thought outside the box. He created a whole universe that changed the lives of many people, mine included.
His story is proof to always follow your heart, no matter who stands in your way.
If there is something that you feel is good, something you want to do, something that means something to you, try to do it. Because I think you can only do your best work if you're doing what you want to do, and if you're doing it the way you think it should be done.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you, Stan.
thank you, Stan.
You'll be glad you did.